Some of my students didn't think they were creative. Now their photos exhibit alongside National Geographic's legends. It's not luck or talent. They used a simple trick I taught them called the BAT method. Most photographers actually miss this simple trick, making their photos look unprofessional. But in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what this 3-step method is and how you can easily start using it when taking your own photos. Before we dive into BAT together, let me show you why most wildlife photographers spend years chasing trips, burning vacation days, and investing tens of thousands on gear and tours, yet still feel stuck. Imagine two photographers. Photographer 1 has a packed travel schedule, weeks or even months booked, flying from Alaska to Costa Rica, chasing every rare bird and wildlife sighting. They are on every photo tour. Cameras always at the ready, capturing hundreds of thousands of images each year. Photographer 2, they've taken maybe a tenth as many photos. No exhausting tour schedule, no 2 a.m. layovers. Yet, this year alone, they've won 5 major awards and landed a gallery show. What gives? Here's the difference. Both photographers love birds and wildlife, but photographer 1 shoots everything. Owls, eagles, moose, gorillas, bears, jaguars, you name it. Their portfolio is massive, colorful, but scattered. It's filled with what I call trophy shots. Images that say, look, animals in your face. Nailed it. Photographer 2 asked a different question. What kind of photo actually moves people? And then they pursued only that. Let's illustrate with jelly beans. So each jelly beans represent one photo. Photographer 1's cup is overflowing, but the beans are all different colors, different moments, species, different lighting. Impressive variety, yes, but no style, no signature, just a mixed mountain of images. Photographer 2's cup is smaller, but nearly every single jelly bean is red. They say no to 99 out of 100 opportunities, focusing only on capturing emotional impact. Here's the crazy part. Even though photographer 2 has far fewer images, they win more contests, sell more prints, and attract a bigger audience. Why? Because their work speaks a clear emotional language. It connects, it moves people. Judges could feel it. So ask yourself, who gets invited to speak at events, publish books, or land magazine covers? Not the one with 100,000 random photos, but the one with 100 images that truly matters. And it gets even better. You don't need 10 years of fieldwork or unlimited vacation days. You just need to learn how to stack red jelly beans, how to go from spray and pray to precision impact. Photographer 2, with fewer but intentional photos, gets 10 times the recognition, response from viewers, and print sales. Why? Because their followers trust them as the expert in emotional, powerful wildlife imagery. The audience isn't just inspired, they are transformed. And best of all, photographer 2 isn't editing a million photos at 2 a.m. wondering what to submit or post. They aren't joining every safari to avoid FOMO. They are simply making a bigger impact with fewer, more intentional photos. In fact, one of my students took fewer trips last year than ever before, yet walked away with 5 international contest wins and a collector buying their 60-inch prints. So now, the big question is, how do you start stacking red jelly bean? How do you move from scattered snapshots to powerful, focused images? Well, that's exactly what the BAT system is all about, and I'll walk you through it. So what exactly is this BAT method? Let me start with something I've never forgotten, even after 13 years. It was the Two Towers, the second Lord of the Rings film. I remember every detail of that moment. The theater was quiet, dark, everyone holding their breath. We had just watched the Fellowship fall apart. Then suddenly, the entire screen exploded in white light. For a second, I thought all hope was lost. But no, it was him, Gandalf, alive, transformed. No longer Gandalf the Grey, now Gandalf the White, reborn, radiating power. The way he stepped into the frame, like a celestial being, you felt it. The entire theater gasped. That single visual moment hit harder than any line of dialogue. I didn't realize it then, but that moment planted a seed that grew into one of the most powerful lessons I've ever learned in photography. Years later, looking back through thousands of my own photos, I noticed a clear pattern. The images that won awards, went viral, or sparked conversations, they almost all shared one critical element. They were Backlit. Now, when I started photography, every tutorial said the same thing. Keep the sun behind you, front-lit your subject, expose for the subject. I tried it, and honestly, I didn't really like it. I felt flat, predictable, safe. So I broke the rules. I experimented. I started shooting against the light, and something incredible happened. Those images had 10, sometimes 100 times more impact than the correctly lit ones. It wasn't just luck. It was the same lighting secret used by legendary painter Caravaggio centuries ago. The master of chiaroscuro, the interplay of light and shadow. His subject glowed with emotion, mystery, and tension. Backlighting creates this magic. It adds a whim light, that stunning outline that instantly draws your eyes. It simplifies chaos, hiding distractions in shadow and guiding your viewers straight to the soul of the image. If there's one thing I've learned from judging international photo contests, is this. Winning images aren't just sharp or technically perfect. They simplify, they evoke mystery, they make you feel something. That's the power of abstraction, and intentional backlighting is one of the best ways to achieve it. Backlight transforms a good photo into a visual story. It turns documentation into art. That brings us to the first letter in the BAT method. The B stands for backlit. Always look for backlight first. Now you might be thinking, Tin Man, sometimes backlit isn't even possible. Is that the end? Let me take you back to something I shared in another video. Something you might remember. It was a first date. She was stunning, even more beautiful than I imagined. Then she smiled. And all I could see was a tiny piece of broccoli right there stuck between her teeth. That single speck of green completely derailed the entire conversation. Now here's the thing most photographers don't realize. Judges experience exactly that feeling when they see one specific mistake in the photo. And no, it's not just an awkward branch or tall grass. It's the harsh shadow. That harsh, distracting blotch of contrast right next to a bright highlight, pulling attention away from your story. That harsh shadow doesn't just distract us, it exposes you. It instantly reveals whether the photographer truly understands light or not. In fact, it's one of the quickest ways we spot an amateur. The moment we see uncontrolled, distracting shadows crawling across fur or feather, we know this photographer hasn't mastered the basics yet. Even if everything else is strong, the composition, timing, or even emotion, that one shadow quietly gets your photo passed over. So how do we fix it? Let me take you back to when I was just starting out. I was hungry for feedback, obsessed with improvement. But all my friends would say, Tin Man, you're a natural, which honestly was useless. Finally, one photographer gave it to me straight. He looked at some of my work and said, "You are all over the place." I was crushed. But after the sting wore off, I took a hard look. And he was right. I realized my mistakes. I wasn't paying extreme attention to one of the most important variables in photography, the angle of light. I had no idea that just 5 degrees off, or even less, and harsh shadow starts creeping across your subject. And that's when I started noticing how the pros behave in the field. They move constantly. They are not chasing the subjects, they are chasing the perfect direction of the light. So how do you master angle? If you face the sun directly, you get flare, wash out flat images. But shift just 5 degrees off axis towards the sun and everything transforms. You get the glow, you get the mystery, you get the emotion. Now, as the sun climbs higher in the sky, backlight starts to lose its magic. The contrast between rim light and shadow becomes too extreme. Either your highlights blow out or your subject disappears into darkness. That's when you pivot. You switch to front light. But here's the key: footwork. You move your feet, you shift your position. Because simply having the sun behind you isn't enough. If the sun is high, it casts harsh, downward shadows, leaves, grass, branches. They paint jagged, distracting patterns across your subject's face. But if you adjust your position just slightly, those harsh shadows softens. And when the sun is still low and saturated, direct front light isn't ideal either. It's too flat, too predictable. Instead, move slightly off to the side, around 45 degrees sometimes from the sun. This creates beautiful, soft, modeling shadow, like something out of a Renaissance oil painting. This is the A in bad angle. So for example, you're facing the sun, there's a fox that shows up. So you try to get the backlit, aiming at the animal with the sun in front of you. With this direct angle, it will create a lot of flare in the photo and it looks two-dimensional. So what is advised for backlit is actually move a little bit off to the angle, maybe within 5 degrees. That will create the perfect backlit photo. However, during the front lit situation where the sun is behind the photographer and the animals show up, in this situation, if the fox show up like this, instead of just bringing your camera and shoot, the photographer need to walk immediately to the left. And the reason is now you are aligning the sun and the photographer and the animal in one line, so it would avoid a harsh shadow on the animal. And what about if the animal suddenly moved? You don't continue to photograph the animals. You have to immediately adjust your location, your own spot, so that still the angle is perfect. Same thing when the animal keep on moving, don't keep on shooting, but move. When the animal move back to here, you also move, so that you're always making sure that this line is aligned, especially when the sun is high up. And when you can get the angle correctly, then there's no harsh shadow. Everything on the bird is perfectly lit. However, if you don't pay attention to it, you will cast this harsh shadow on the bird. So these are all the harsh shadow. Same thing in here. This is already kind of recovering in Photoshop, but still you can see that the shadow is pretty harsh. Mastering the angle of light separates amateurs from artists. It turns technically correct images into unforgettable ones. It's the key to controlling exactly what your viewers see, and more importantly, what they feel. Backlight may create emotion, but angle gives you the control. And when it comes to contests, awards, and standing out, one careless harsh shadow might be the broccoli that cost you the win. So you might be wondering, okay, Tin Man, I get it. Backlight is emotional, angle is everything, but is that really all it takes to create photos that win awards and move people? Let me tell you a story about the final piece of the puzzle, the one thing that elevates your images from good to truly unforgettable. Years ago, I attended a keynote given by a National Geographic photographer, someone I admired for years. He shared the moments from early in his career that left the entire room stunned. He had been assigned a major wildlife story. Young, hungry, and proud, he worked really hard, got up early, trekked deep into the park, and captured what he believed were breathtaking images. Then he brought them to the editor. The editor flipped through the stack of slides and without a word, tossed them aside. "Do it again," the editor said. Confused but determined, the photographer went back. This time he pushed even harder. Cleaner shots, closer frames, better behavior. He returned with twice as many photos. Same result. Again, the editor tossed them aside. Frustrated, he finally asked, "What's wrong with them?" So the editor leaned back, looked him straight in the eye, and asked one simple question. "What time did you take these?" He replied, "Well, the park opens at 8, so I was there right when the gates opened. Got in as early as I could." The editor nodded slowly, then said something that changed his entire career. "Sunrise is at 6 o'clock. Make it happen." He was stunned. That was the moment he realized great photography doesn't wait for park gates. Doesn't mean that you should violate the rule, but the key is to find places where you can photograph early, because light doesn't wait. That story stayed with me. It rattled around my mind every time before I went out to shoot. So how do you apply this? I started noticing something. The best light, the unforgettable images, the emotional award-winning photos, they all happened in a tiny window of time, from right before sunrise to right after sunset. Not when it's convenient. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Think about it. If you are an oil painter, wouldn't you obsess over the quality of your brush? Well, in photography, your paintbrush is the light. That's where it clicked for me. I've spent years photographing during safe hours, mid-morning, late afternoon, just whenever the animal appeared. But the drama, the magic, the emotion, it lives in those edges of the day. Now I schedule my entire day around those golden windows. 30 minutes before sunrise to 30 minutes after, same for sunset. That's when I do 80% or 90% of my shooting. The rest of the time, I would just be scouting, planning, and simply resting. Because trying to nail a great shot in backlight is like showing up to a Super Bowl blindfolded. But let me give you a real-life example that still gives me chills. I was on an expensive safari in Africa, the kind that costs 5 figures and promised the best lights, the best wildlife, and the best sky. Just as the sky lit up in golden and fire, the guy stopped the vehicle, set up a table, and said, "Sundowner time." Champagne glasses were brought out at the most cinematic light. I was losing my mind because here's the truth: you can create breathtaking, high-quality images well after sunset. If you understand light, if you respect time, if you plan for those moments like your shots depended on it, because it does. The final letter in BAT is T, time of day. Because timing isn't just important, it's everything. The true masters don't just shoot a lot, they shoot on purpose, at exactly the right time. And if you don't, you'll end up like I did on that safari, surrounded by potential but capturing none of it. Now you know the full BAT method. B is for backlit, the emotion, A is for the angle, and T is for the time of the day. And this method has helped my students save a lot more time in the field while winning a lot more major international awards faster than they could ever imagine. So even the most extraordinary wildlife moments, an eagle locking talons in mid-air, a snow leopard leaping across the cliff, a lioness nursing her cubs at dusk, none of it will matter if your light doesn't match the ultra-specific criteria of BAT. As Robert McKee famously said, a story without mood is not a story, it's just documentary. Photography is no different. However, even when you master the BAT system, there's still one silent killer of your photos if you are not careful. So make sure to watch my next video where I show you what that is.